As sports chiropractors, we are proud of this next guest, filmmaker Jordan Gorman. Jordan is the creator and producer of the incredible documentary, The Aligned Athlete, where his film tells tales of the untold, gripping saga of sports chiropractic pioneers. Diving deep into the trenches of the revolutionary era, Jordan unveils the relentless spirit of stalwarts like Dr. Leroy Perry, who defied norms and never backed down, even when he was arrested and blacklisted. But that's not all. Get ready to uncover the dark truths about the power dynamics that once threatened to stifle the chiropractic movement, and hear Jordan's personal reflections on growing up as the offspring of a true chiropractic pioneer. Plus, a special tribute to the legendary bobsledder, Tom Tanneberger, and a candid conversation on the shifting perceptions of chiropractic in the digital age. Don't miss this riveting journey from the son of a renowned sports chiropractor to the creator of a documentary that's stirring conversations and challenging stereotypes, only on the Crackin' Backs podcast. Well, Jordan, I am so excited to talk to you because what you have done for our profession is beyond words. And your documentary on the aligned athlete is something that not only every chiropractor should see, but probably every human being that has never been to a chiropractor should see. So please start by sharing with us how what drove you, what inspired you to do this thing?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here. What drove me is I come from a chiropractic family. My dad is a sports chiropractor, and I feel like he's kind of one of the pioneers in sports chiropractic. I feel like he had a big impact on the profession with his involvement, and I touch on that in the film. And so having that background of being part of a chiropractic family, it made me just want to try to educate others and show others that chiropractic works. And through the film, it's showing it works for athletes, but the greater message is that it works for everyone. And so hopefully I achieve that with this film. You know, if it brings one new patient to chiropractic, I feel like I did my job.
That's great. I've always felt that sports was probably the strongest, most powerful vehicle to get the word out about chiropractic. And, you know, you have these ambassadors that are athletes that are a superior level. You really, really captured that so well. How hard was it to make?
It was pretty hard. I mean, we started it in, I think, the summer of 2018, and we didn't finish it till 2022. And part of that was with COVID and overcoming those difficulties. And we did a lot of interviews. I mean, there's 8 chiropractors and 10 athletes in the film. And there was hours and hours and hours of footage, tens of hours of footage that we got down to 22 minutes, which I thought was important because I wanted a quick and easy watch for patients, for everybody, because I feel like so often there's these long documentaries that may be great, but people can't really sit through it and they kind of check out a little bit. So I wanted something short and sweet that was easy for viewers to take in and watch. So it was definitely a challenge, not going to lie. When it was done, I was relieved. Partially because I wanted my dad to really like it. I wanted the profession of chiropractic to really like it. And I definitely felt that pressure. And, I've gotten positive feedback from chiropractors. And that's the thing that made me like, okay, we finished it. People like it. Like, I can finally relax after like 4 years.
Oh my gosh. Especially through the pandemic. That is, that's an impressive experience in itself. What was one of the most pivotal moments during your documentary that you were maybe most proud of, or that you just maybe got, well, like me, get goosebumps about every exciting thing that happens? But I mean, what was there a moment for you?
So I went into this, thinking, okay, this is going to be a film kind of just promoting chiropractic and sports chiropractic, but I really did not want it to feel like a commercial, because I felt like that wouldn't, people wouldn't really be able to relate to that. So I was excited when I sat down with Dr. Leroy Perry, who's one of, the central parts of the story of the film. And I'm like, oh shoot, we have a whole story here. Like it's his story is wild. And I tried my best to capture as much of it as possible in this short film. But like, I mean, there's villains, somebody, tragically passed away. Like there are so many obstacles in the 70s for chiropractors. I mean, there was a whole story here, which was really exciting for me as a storyteller to have a story to tell people and show people that chiropractic works versus just having like testimonials and people saying, you should see a chiropractor. It was really important to me to find the story. And so when I did find the story, I was really excited about it.
See, and that's what I liked about the film. In fact, I had the honor to meet Leroy Perry back in the late 80s, early 90s. And in fact, I went to his clinic. I got worked on by him. I talked to him. I hung out with him. And I probably hung out with him for a couple of weeks because his clinic wasn't far from where I went to school. The question I have when I was listening to that and watching him, and for those who don't know, he was the chiropractor, was also on Madonna's video and way back when, and so he did a lot, and he was persecuted a lot. What did you learn about the struggle he went through, as well as like your father and other sports chiropractors at that time, and what did you learn about their endurance and why they never quit?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was aware of it, coming from a chiropractic family as far as the pushback, because even like growing up, I mean, I feel like chiropractic has grown, to such a great point to where it is today. But even growing up, I mean, there's pushback to where people are like, a chiropractor, like, what is that? And so I was always familiar with people not being, too aware of chiropractic and what chiropractic does. And with this film, I was really able to kind of like look into that reason why and the history of, chiropractors being persecuted and all these, slander campaigns against them. And it was like really wild to me to listen to Dr. Leroy Perry talk about stories like, trying to adjust athletes out of small meat and him getting arrested and driven to the airport. And through this film, when actually the first showing of it, which was at the Oregon Chiropractic Association's conference, somebody told us after viewing it, like, oh, we had that experience too, where we would, have police come up to us and, and trouble us. So I think it's just wild to me because all the chiropractors I've met are such genuine people. They just want to make a difference. They really want to help people. And that's all Leroy was trying to do, is he was trying to help these athletes. And the reason he kept doing it is because the athletes were advocating for him and speaking out for him because it was working. And the athletes saw how much, chiropractic could impact not only their athletic performance, but their overall life and their health. And so there was like a bigger message here. And that's why Dr. Leroy and all other chiropractors in the 70s during that time, they kept going because they saw we are making a difference and we are changing people's lives.
I got two questions. One, did it make you look at your dad a little different? And would be question number one. And number two, did you ever once question when you were doing this film going, why was the pushback so big when chiropractors don't use medication? They don't use drugs. They're not doing surgery. And if you think about what's the threat and why was the medical profession so against us when we're trying to work with the body to heal it? And we're not bringing in all this extra stuff. And when the athletes were wanting it, so what did that whole thought process of this natural thing, and about that same time, that whole holistic medicine was being changed. It was used to be the holistic medicine was that the doctor that brought the black bag to the house and treated the whole body, and that term got dumped on the chiropractor. So have you looked at all that kind of stuff, and what's your opinions about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it comes back to ignorance. I think people are afraid of what they don't know, or I think also in this case, I think it's egos too, as well. I think, so I think it was part, not having the knowledge about chiropractic and how it's working, but also some of these MDs were seeing chiropractic as a threat, as something that was taking patients away from them. And that's never what it should be about. It never should be about self-interest. And I think in this country, especially with the medical establishment, it's a lot of ego, it's a lot of self-interest, put before the patient, before the person. And I think that's the problem. It's like a mix of kind of ignorance, not knowing, but also fear of something that could potentially take away a patient, even though that's kind of all rubbish to me. I don't know why, MDs and chiropractors can't work together. And obviously it's way better today than it was in the 70s, but it still is a problem. And I think now it's a problem of like education, of educating people from those like slander campaigns in the 70s. I think it still is having effect to this day, where people view chiropractic as being this kind of like, I don't know, like voodoo, like whatever you want to call it. And so I think with this film, the goal was to try to educate more and more people to kind of overcome those like, kind of BS campaigns that had such a unfortunate but like effective effect in the 70s against chiropractic.
What year was, Terry, maybe you remember, what year was all that going on?
So, I mean, it's primarily in the 70s that the film kind of covers as far as Leroy trying to get onto the U.S. Olympic team, the medical team, I mean. That was in 76, and he ended up having to work with Antigua and Barbuda because he couldn't get onto the U.S. medical team because MDs wouldn't allow him. And that's a part of the film. And then in the 1980s, he finally was able to get onto the U.S. Olympic medical team for the Winter Olympics. And he could only work with the bobsled team. So he finally was able to get on it. But the film kind of covers that as far as in the 70s, the struggle for Leroy to treat athletes and all he had to overcome. And then it kind of goes into the 80s when my dad, Dr. Gorman, became the head meat chiropractor for the Prefontaine Classic, which for those that don't know, the Prefontaine Classic is one of the most well-known annual track and field events in the world. It's one of the most respected, highly rated. And that was important because it kind of laid down the foundation as far as having chiropractors at these meets and kind of set the tone for all other meets across the world to include chiropractic and make chiropractic a central part of track and field athletes, routine before they go and compete.
Before I'm going to jump in for a second, because on that Prefontaine, don't you have and I don't know how he ever got on the medical staff. Ted Forkham got on that. And I have no idea how that man ever made it because, he's the idiot that introduced us to you. So I guess I can't throw him under the bus too much.
You're calling Ted.
No, we love Teddy.
I'm calling Ted out on this show right here. He's got to have something to listen to because, he threw us under the bus, Spencer, but he did it in text. We're doing it verbally.
Yes. We have the forum. Yeah, I love Ted. He's he's an unbelievable guy. So the reason why I asked what year, and I want to put those who remember that in that mindset, and those who don't know about that or don't remember that, even our audience goes past just chiropractors; it goes to general audience and so on. But it was interesting because we've obviously come a very long way.
Yeah.
I actually had a buddy of mine that I graduated with. He had a radio show here in South Florida that was primarily a Jamaican station. And they liked him so much that they asked him to be the chiropractor for the Jamaican bobsled team. And then and so I would laugh at him because he didn't know anything about sports injuries, right? So years later, and I want to make this public, is he calls me up. He ends up being the chiropractor to the fastest man on the planet, Usain Bolt. So now he thinks he's a sports chiropractor. Dude, you just got lucky. But what a testimonial. What a testimonial, to have chiropractors, a chiropractor treating, somebody of that level and that kind of. So has your dad been proud of how far chiropractic has gone?
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, you just see kind of the athletes that he's treated, and it's a part of the film as far as Dan O'Brien, who was known as the world's greatest athlete. He, in 96, after he won the gold medal, when he was working with my dad, he said, if it wasn't for chiropractic, I wouldn't have won the gold medal. And that's such a famous quote now for chiropractors, for sports chiropractors. And so it's like, how can you not, feel something? Obviously, my dad is like a humble guy and, he wouldn't really admit it. But, that's the special thing about sports chiropractic is you can kind of see the rewards of your work, especially in the sport of track and field, where things are measured by like, physical things, by meters, by point seconds. Like you can actually see the difference,
Yes.
that chiropractic can have in performance and optimizing performance. And so it's special because you can actually see chiropractic working in real time.
Oh, that's great.
Did you take, obviously your dad treated you when you were just a little boy.
Yep.
Did you ever take it for granted that was just the natural way? And were you enlightened at what point in your life did you realize, holy crap, man, this is like some serious stuff here? Do you remember that?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely took it for granted, especially our mom is like, you need to get adjusted. Come on, Jordan, get up on that table. Let's go. Get adjusted. Even when I come home, like I take it for granted a bit.
Go mom.
Yeah. No, we love mom. We love mom. Mom be momming. But yeah, I think I kind of noticed like, okay, like, why am I hardly ever getting sick compared to a lot of my classmates? Like, why do I feel healthy? Why do I, not get injured as often? Like, you can see as you grow up and, see it, you're like, oh, wow. Like, I think this chiropractic stuff that I have been taking for granted, like, has been working and has been making me as healthy as possible. Whereas, other kids, other classmates, other people, you see they're suffering through, this injury, this back pain, they get sick all the time. So I think there was a benefit that, I obviously didn't really notice as a kid, but then as I got older and older, and I'm seeing all these other people with health problems, and then me and my siblings, we're kind of healthy as a clam. Like, you see the difference that chiropractic can make.
Oh, I love hearing about that. Let me ask you about the bobsledder, Bob Tanneberger. Can you elaborate on what you remember about him?
Yeah. So this is definitely the most moving part of the film, and we actually tribute the film to Tom because in 1980, when Dr. Leroy Perry finally was able to make it onto the U.S. Medical team, he was only allowed to work with the bobsled team. And with bobsledding, it's a really brutal sport. There's a ton of injuries, and that's why the bobsled team wanted Dr. Leroy Perry, is because they were suffering with lots of injuries. And basically what happened is when Dr. Leroy Perry was brought on, he had basically he was designated as like an Olympic doctor, which means he was able to work with athletes from all over the world. And there's a lot of different athletes that would work with Dr. Leroy Perry. And basically the villain in the film, who, kind of oversaw the US medical staff, and I'm not going to bring up his name, but he found out about this Olympic appointment and got really mad about it and kind of made it just a federation appointment, meaning he could only work with the bobsled team. And so it was basically, long story short, it was just limiting the amount of athletes he could see. Tom Tanneberger was really upset about this. Him and the bobsledders were upset about, why are you, not allowing this great doctor to work with as many athletes as possible, just because of, this MD's, ego and selfishness. And so Tom and some of his fellow bobsledders decided to get in a car during, winter months and drive to where the US medical staff was having a meeting. And they wanted to confront this doctor, about why did he change Dr. Leroy Perry's, status from being an Olympic doctor to just a federation appointment. And on their way driving to that meeting, because of the weather, the car crashed, and fatally, Tom Tanneberger passed away. And he was just recently married. He had his whole life, his whole career in front of him. And so there's a really moving moment in the film where Dr. Leroy Perry describes the story better than I just did. But he says that, in a moving moment, that Tom died for the profession of chiropractic, essentially, because he was out there, he was going to advocate for Leroy Perry and kind of stand up for him. And in doing so, because of the weather, he unfortunately passed away. And so the film at the end, we dedicate it to Tom and kind of chiropractic heroes like him who have stood up for the profession against those who have pushed back against it.
Wow. I will say, and Dr. you can make fun of me, but in watching that, I got a little teary-eyed. The way Dr. Perry put it across, it was a jolt. It was, even now I get all messed up, but it's worth for those who haven't seen it. It's really, really worth seeing. And I am not even sure did we even mention the title? It's The Aligned Athlete. It's The Aligned Athlete. That's the name of the film, and it's on Vimeo, I believe. Is it Vimeo? No, where can they find it?
It's on Vimeo, but
right?
you can just go to alignedathletefilm.com and you can find it on there.
And I absolutely urge everybody, all the listeners, to see that. It's just, and you're right. You captured all the elements, the villain, the hero, the one who paid the debt of his life for the profession. I mean, it is all, and all these heroes and superstars. And I love that. So it was brought up in the film that, most people think chiropractors are just backcrackers. But the mechanics of what we really are, we are the mechanics of the nervous system. So, what can you say more about what you've learned from that? And we don't want to slip back into that model, even though we call our podcast the Cracking Backs podcast. But what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so something that I thought was really important with the film, and obviously I came into directing this and making this film like with prior knowledge of chiropractic, coming from a chiropractic family. But I was really trying to put myself in a position of like, if people don't know anything about chiropractic, how should I lay this out for them? And so there's a section in the film later in the film that tries to describe it in as simple terms as possible. And I think there's a quote, in the film where it's, like, we're not back doctors, we're, doctors of like the nervous system. And the nervous system, it affects all functions of the body. And I think that's something people don't really like understand fully, is how, this part here, messes this part here. And just from like walking or doing daily things, you really mess up your nervous system and how your body can function. And so that was kind of my goal with it, is because I'm not a chiropractor too. So I was trying to kind of lay out, the argument for chiropractic in as simple of terms as possible, so that like everybody would get it. Because my hope with this film wasn't to reach chiropractors necessarily, but, people who don't really know much about chiropractic and athletes who don't utilize chiropractic.
So as a filmmaker, you're starting to see now on other film platforms, such as maybe YouTube and all that, chiropractors are starting to go after likes. And the way they get the best likes is to get the loudest crack. And they're microphoning these people's backs and they're yanking, using Y straps and yanking on people. And it seems like they're trying to get likes instead of to educate of what we're doing. So as a filmmaker, talking to other filmmakers that are doing YouTube, what's your message?
Yeah. So I work in social media, like with my job. So it's like, I understand, it's kind of like it's a double-edged sword a little bit, because I get, the argument as far as getting eyeballs onto chiropractic and onto the profession through those videos. I think the other part of it is it does create some fear as far as people who've never gotten adjustment before. They hear those cracks and they're like, holy crap, like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't like, that's scary. Like, my body can make that sound. Like, what? I mean, I think attention is attention. So I think it's good, but obviously it's just kind of how you position it. And I definitely think, rather than, going out and posting a video just for likes, it's also thinking like, okay, how can I make a fun video that might also get those likes, but also educate people and not kind of, I don't know, scare people away from the profession. So it's kind of like it's a good balance of, getting those eyeballs, but then also like, once you have those eyeballs, how do you educate them? How do you bring them into chiropractic in the best way you can,
Very good.
I agree. Yeah, and I know that You probably all are aware of the series that's on TLC now. Is it TLC?
The crack addicts.
The crack addict. By the way,
Yep.
that takes place only about maybe a couple hours from here. I know, South Florida, but anyway, no, it's interesting. Have you seen it?
I haven't.
Jordan? Have you? Oh,
I have.
Well,
I have.
Have you? What are your thoughts based on someone with your background? What are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm here for it because I think, the more chiropractic gets into mainstream, I'm happy about it. I mean, I was watching, there's a new series on Netflix called Quarterbacks. And I think it was in episode 3, there's a whole scene of Kirk Cousins working with a chiropractor. And so I think it's good visibility, honestly, because the more people see chiropractic, maybe the less they'll fear it, and the more that they'll be open to it. So, I think it's exciting that chiropractic is becoming more and more mainstream, and I still think it has a ways to go. But I mean, I'm here for it. What do you guys think of it? So you've seen it, Dr. Barron, yeah?
I got a little cringy from it at first, and I thought, oh God, but then, I mean, it's TLC. They need to, get some drama in there.
Yeah.
It's funny because Hard Knocks. When I was with the Miami Dolphins, Hard Knocks was there to film, and I thought, oh, this is it. This is my debut. This is probably about 10 years ago, and and they all the video crew wanted me to treat them. I'm going, how about filming me? Just, all these guys. No, they all wanted to get treated, but I never got a camera position me. I thought, oh man, maybe it's not acceptable yet. I don't know.
That's funny.
It was, but listen, I get it. And you're right, Jordan. I mean, it's a good testimonial to chiropractic, but man, I'm getting people that have not even been treated before going, oh my God, I'm like addicted to this crack addict series on TV, and she's becoming more popular too. In fact, I think she's lecturing or presenting at the Michigan Chiropractic Association at sometime this year or next year. Yeah,
I'm gonna have to watch this now.
So, well, yeah, it's pretty cool. I would love to hear your opinion on it. Well, Jordan, we were going to switch gears. We're going to get into a part in our program, what we call rapid fire questions. And I'm going to ask you 5 different questions, and being based on rapid fire, we would hope to get a quick answer, but it never seems to happen. We always get roped into your cool answer or that person's cool answer. So are you ready?
Yeah, I'm sweating a little bit, but I'm ready.
Hey, don't worry, you got the young brain that you'll think quick on your feet.
Yeah, Spencer's sweating just asking them, so your eyes are all good, right?
I mean, it's hot in LA here too, so it's not helping my cause.
It's not that hot, not compared. Don't say hot when we're talking to a guy from Florida.
I can't.
It's what, 75 out right now. I mean, come on, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, really. That 75 is like in the middle of the night for us. All right. Rapid fire. Question number 1, Jordan. What was the moment that you realized the importance or value in what chiropractic can do for you?
I mean, I kind of touched on this earlier, but I mean, me just having a more healthy life and being able to live my life by being adjusted I mean, I've never had drugs in my life before. I mean, there's a lot of things. I live a healthier lifestyle, and I feel like it really allows me to live my life to the fullest and just enjoy being me. I mean, that's kind of a simple answer, but it's honestly just being able to live my best life through being healthy.
Love it. Question number 2. Besides your own, what is your favorite documentary?
My favorite documentary. It's a good question because this is going to sound really ironic, but I actually don't watch that many documentaries, even though I make documentaries. Yeah, you're kind of catching me off guard there. Growing up, I have a few, and they're kind of pretty mainstream. Growing up, I was really into climate change and all that, so I really liked An Inconvenient Truth, and I saw the ability that a film could, how a film could really educate people. there's also another one that's called The Cove. These are really random documentaries. This shows you how few I watch, but there's one called The Cove that's kind of about, preserving wildlife as far as dolphins and kind of the fishing of dolphins. And that's a really exciting, almost kind of has like a Bourne Ultimatum feel to it. That's really exciting. And then it's slipping my mind, but there is a recent doc that won the Oscar a few years back about I think it was called Free Solo. Yeah, about a climber and kind of just him pushing his body's limit to the fullest and just kind of risking his life for, a hobby that's more like a passion for him. I would say those three films. The randomest three docs will probably ever get to that answer. But I need to watch more. I honestly need to watch more. I don't watch enough movies, honestly.
Well, those filmmakers should be watching your documentary because it was well done. Really, it was pro level. I mean, it was really, really good. Question number 3. Best thing you have learned being a filmmaker?
I think it's about being a good listener, honestly. And I think that's my favorite part about being a filmmaker is just sitting down with people and having a conversation with them and learning from them, and getting to hear their story. Like sitting with a lot of these chiropractors and hearing their stories of changing people's lives. I mean, a lot of it couldn't make the film, but there were so many life-changing moments of like mothers crying in their arms because they helped change like their child's life through chiropractic. I mean, there's so many stories that I couldn't include the film. But I think that's really cool, just sitting down with people and like hearing how they're changing people's lives. And then in turn, like me learning from them, and that kind of impacts my life and my view of the world.
Beautiful.
I got to ask you, and this isn't one of our rapid fire questions, but was there a moment interviewing, and I love that listening is a skill.
Yeah.
And for you to capture what you did on the film, it is a testimony to your listening abilities or it's an art, really. Was there a moment in all those interviews, even the ones you couldn't air, that were maybe not didn't fit your sequence, but was really moving for you?
I'm trying to think. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is actually a sequence that did make the film at the very end. And it was, I was debating whether or not to keep it because it almost felt like a personal moment that was, I was fearful that people wouldn't really relate to it and it'd feel too personal. But it was when I was interviewing my dad at the end and I got him to cry, which was my goal. And the 2 hours I interviewed him, he was like the longest interview. That man doesn't stop talking, bless his heart. But
like Dr. Terry.
You too, buddy.
Honestly, guys, these chiropractors, they don't stop talking.
No, we don't.
I interviewed 8 of them, and bless your guys' heart, but sometimes you can be a little more concise, but it's always good stuff. It's always good stuff.
Oh my God. That's hilarious. I'm glad there's others like me.
Yeah, we're all like it. We're all the same. It's a curse and a gift.
Yeah. At least you guys feel seen in this moment. I'm glad I could help you guys with that. But I was interviewing my dad and I just asked him, and I asked all the chiropractors this, I'm like, what's the most rewarding thing about being a chiropractor? And he broke down because he was saying, just treating my wife and my kids, it was as simple as that. And just like, he's been doing this forever. I kind of joke, he's like the Yoda, I feel like, of chiropractic because the dude's been around forever. As you guys can kind of like relate being in the profession for a while. Youthfully, I don't mean that as like an old way.
No.
But but seeing him, all his years of chiropractic, and he could have talked about all the athletes, and it came down to just his family, and him just being able to give his family the best life he can through his profession. That was a pretty special moment to share with him. That was pretty emotional, not gonna lie. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, that was the one that pushed me over the edge, but I wasn't going to, till the end of the story. I was going to let you mention it if it came up. But man,
I'm glad it touched you because, like I was saying, like I was afraid it was kind of this, like it kind of felt like it shouldn't belong to the film.
No.
But it was kind of just in my gut to keep it because, and I'm happy I did, because there's been a lot of chiropractors that have been like, oh, I related to that. I was moved by that. And I think that speaks to like, the purpose of chiropractic and the film is just to like impact people's lives. And, it's all about love at the end of the day too. And taking care of love of others and taking care of others. So I think it was important to include that.
I think it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And it made the film to me.
Perfect. Yeah. It was, it was a good choice to put that in there. Cause, that's what got me. That was one of the things. And so it was perfect. Oh, I don't even want to ask question number 4. I'm obviously at an age where I'm very emotional about father, son, family stuff.
He's going through menopause.
I already did. This is just, I don't know what this is.
Hey, it's okay. It's okay to have emotions and let it, express it.
I've always been this way. So I think I've been born with menopause. But what question number 4, what was one thing that you learned from your dad that you've never told him?
That I've never told him. I mean, I would just say like he's really taught me about love and selflessness and being passionate about what you're doing. And I think seeing him kind of change the world in my eyes, one chiropractic adjustment at a time and changing people's lives, it definitely drives me to be better in whatever I'm doing, whether it's a smaller task or a bigger task. It's like, because I have that example of him making a difference, as all chiropractors do, it makes me want to make a difference. And so I would say it's like having him as a role model in that respect would probably be my takeaway. Yeah.
We're going to send this clip to him, by the way.
Father's Day present.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah.
All right. Last question. Question number 5. If you could go back in time and meet one person, who would it be?
Ooh, go back in time. So somebody not currently alive, or can they be alive?
How far? I don't know, Terry. How far back? What does the rapid fire rule book say? How far back can we go?
I don't think there is a rule. I think back in time is back in time. So,
all right. Fair game, Jordan.
This is a tough one. You have me stumped on this one. I'm trying to think of somebody. I mean, a really basic, a really basic answer, but it kind of made me fall in love with movies. Is I would really want to meet Steven Spielberg one day, which I know is such a cliche answer as a filmmaker to say that, but that's why I fell in love with movies. As a kid, I would like steal our family's like video camera and just kind of like imagine, I don't know, whatever in our backyard. I would come up with these like fake worlds, and it kind of got my imagination running. And I think storytelling is like, if not the most powerful, one of the most powerful tools one can have to change minds, to educate minds. Mm-hmm. And so just like talking storytelling and story and like movies with him would be like a dream of mine.
Brilliant.
Oh, that's great.
All right.
So, actually, you know what? I wanted to interject one last bit of statistic that you may not be aware of, Jordan, that if you ever decide to do a part 2 and make it current, I hope I just planted a seed for you. But Terry, I know you had a question, but I think that the audience needs to hear the statistics that we gleaned at a nonprofit called Doctors of Chiropractic Sports. And I hired an athletic trainer to call every single athletic trainer in all top 5 sports, baseball, hockey, soccer, basketball, and what did football. I miss? Hockey, football. Jesus. And she also called the athletic trainers of 1,100 sports medicine staffs on collegiate for collegiate sports. I had the list to all these head athletic trainers, and what we found was absolutely fascinating. And you should be proud as hell of your dad and Dr. Perry and the rest of the crew that were the pioneers, because as of now, 90% of professional sports have a chiropractor on their sports medicine staff. And that is a huge testimonial that my goal in doing this was, so when anybody ever said, should we have a chiropractor on our healthcare team, there should be no question, because 100% of the NFL has a chiropractor, 100% of hockey, professional hockey, unfortunately 75% of Major League Soccer, and that may have changed some, so 18 out of 24 teams, 97% of baseball teams, so that's 29 of the 30 teams have a chiropractor, and 24 of the 30 teams in basketball have one. And unfortunately, only 238 of the 1,100 college and university-based sports medicine staff have a chiropractor. So the field is wide open for chiropractors to get in there on the college level and educate those collegiate athletes. So when they become parents or pros, they will ask for a chiropractor. So, Dr. Terry, go ahead with your question.
Beautiful. And I know you worked hard on those stats. So there's your part 2 of where chiropractic is now. So I've seen a resurgence in documentaries lately. I mean, that's becoming really popular, especially with sports. So you're seeing, and I think they're using documentaries to bring new audiences to sports. So you have in Netflix, you have Drive to Survive for F1, Full Swing for golf, Break Point for tennis. And I think it's a brilliant time to get involved in this world. What do you see about this new form of education? You know, is a great tool to teach others about sports professionals that may not be well understood.
Yeah, well, and then I think there's also Netflix is working on a track one, which I'm really excited about too. That's going to be an upcoming series. So hopefully that can be a look into, maybe they'll get some chiropractors in there. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But I think it's great. It's the best time for documentaries, especially series. And I think with sports, with athletes, I feel like people kind of look up to them in the same way as other celebrities, and people are interested in their lives. And I feel like sports is an area where, people haven't really gotten to really like look into their lives and their day to day as much as, mainstream celebrities. And I think people appreciate like all the work that goes into these athletes' lives, and kind of, they're able to see kind of the human side of these athletes. And I think it's motivating. And I mean, sports are huge. Sports are everything. Sports are community. It like brings people together. People love sports. And so I think it's great that, like there's so many sports documentaries and stories being told right now.
Well, I think what I liked about the one, especially the Drive to Survive in Full Swing, is you started, you weren't watching a sport. You started meeting the players, not players, but the characters, shall we say, and you saw how hard and difficult it really is. And it brought you into sport. So now when you watch it, you're watching it, you're rooting on these people, you're understanding the rules, you understand the strategy and all that. And it educates you. So now when you watch a sport that used to be considered boring, a car going around in circles, or golf or tennis, they're going after sports that were considered boring, and they're driving tons of people, new fans to them. Have you thought of doing that form of documentary for people like chiropractic, instead of just telling stories of here's testimonials, but actually following and getting to know the education, getting to know why we think the way we do, and getting to know the people behind it and why we look at bodies different, and how that molds into a better healing process, and using it for educating people about what chiropractic is, instead of just on the basis of testimonials or basis on stuff like that, but actually tell the story and get people emotionally involved what we go through on a daily basis, the amount of education that they have, the amount of knowledge that, and then if you go back even in the 70s of, hitting the head against the wall and getting up again and hitting the head against the wall and being taken away by police and coming back for more, all because we care about making that guy run faster. So have you ever looked at using it as an educational standpoint from that point of view, like the Netflix series are doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great thought because, I mean, I spoke to this earlier, but I feel like when people get to know chiropractors, they can see how, loving, how, great of people chiropractors are. And I feel like if, it's with all these series, it's great and people are loving it because it really humanizes these like almost like godlike status athletes, and it makes people relate to them and it makes people root for them. And so I think that's very valid as far as people getting to know chiropractors. I feel like they would, maybe find some more trust in the profession and kind of, feel more warm to the idea of seeing a chiropractor. So I think that's a great idea, honestly. And I mean, so many of these chiropractors have such amazing stories where you just can't help but like be moved and be like, wow, that's amazing. And so, and a lot of these chiropractors have amazing stories themselves. I mean, a lot of sports chiropractors come from a place of like having been injured. They saw a chiropractor. It like changed their life. It changed like, the path, where they were going in their life. So I think it's a great thought.
Jordan, in closing, and I do want to mention, I want to give you a chance to say whatever you want to say as a close. But while you're talking and while Terry was mentioning about a documentary, if you ever decide to do an updated documentary, I'm telling you, you name the athlete, and I'll bet that we can get them on an interview of some sort, because they are proud that they get treated. It's different. It's what saved that. And I have access to every chiropractor that's on a professional team or at a college level that have been there for years and years. I mean, I personally treated some of the greatest athletes that have roamed the earth and the coaches. So if you ever want to network a way to get a hold of these prolific, beings, let me know. And that if you have nothing better to do, I'd be happy to make some suggestions for you. And I know that Dr. Terry has done exactly the same, and the doctors that actually work with us now. So it could be totally, a forward progression, because I mean, I have a cardiothoracic surgeon that loves chiropractic. And the reason why I bring that up is because people were so afraid and trying to blame us for, throwing strokes and things like that. He gets adjusted. He gets his neck adjusted. That's a testimonial. Yeah. So things like that.
I'm here to connect.
Comes up.
I'm here to connect.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
So,
I mean, just to kind of speak to this whole topic as far as, sports documentaries and athletes and everything, I think it's like people don't realize that like you throw out the biggest name of an athlete and they probably have seen a chiropractor or get chiropractic treatment, because it's like, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Michael Phelps, like the list goes on and on and on. Tiger Woods, like you name the athlete. Yep. And I think that was the goal with this film, is it was showing how chiropractic works for athletes with the goal in mind that hopefully like everyday people, non-athletes, would see it working for them and think, why can't it work for me? So that's kind of the goal with this, is hoping, people are inspired by these athletes.
That would be my dream, to help. And maybe we could even get it funded somehow through some of the, I don't know. Let's talk about that some more. In closing, is there a message you would want, people or listening audience to hear and understand? Anything in particular off the top of your head?
Yeah, I think just to kind of wrap up, the film, it's like the first half is really kind of about the history of how sports chiropractic came to be where it's currently at. Like those stats that you laid out, Dr. Barron, are insane and great. And it shows there's still room to go, especially with college sports, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If the professional athletes are doing it, why shouldn't college athletes, high school athletes and below kind of also get chiropractic treatment? Yeah. But the first half is about the history. And so I hope, aspiring chiropractors will watch it and have a great appreciation for all the, chiropractors that came before them and kind of had to go through a lot of mud, and overcome that to take care of athletes, to take care of people. So I hope, up and coming chiropractors will have a greater appreciation and be more inspired to become a chiropractor from like watching that part. And then the second half of the film is a little bit more testimonials of like athletes speaking on their experiences, and then chiropractors, laying out, why chiropractic works, not only for athletes, but for everyday people. So that second half, it's like, I'm hoping non-athletes, non-chiropractors will take that in and be like, maybe chiropractic is something that I should, implement into my life. As I spoke to earlier, because like, oh, the best athletes in the world are doing it. And, not like I'm trying to become an Olympic gold medalist, but like if the healthiest people, the most fit people, are doing that, like, oh, it might work for me as well. So that's kind of the end goal with this film, is kind of getting it. So chiropractic's not just utilized as much as you said in sports, professional sports, but it's also utilized that much with everyday people.
Yes. Oh, Jordan, thank you so much. And once again, for the listening audience, Google The Aligned Athlete, the documentary, ALIGNED. If you don't know how to spell aligned and you're not a chiropractic patient, get aligned. The Aligned Athlete. And Jordan, this means a lot to me, more than you think. Dr. Terry and I are so committed to our profession. We're doing things beyond self, and that is for the profession, for our patients, for those who haven't been touched by the power of chiropractic. And you really captured it in a very emotional and inspiring film. Thank you so much for doing so.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Crackin' Backs podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Crackin' Backs Podcast. Catch new episodes every Monday. See you next time.